Hello, folks, and welcome back to At Real Chris Wyatt, where we cover politics and anything else of interest around the globe. Our focus here on the original channel is now on U.S. politics with the election coming up in November. Lots happening in America. Quite a bit. Welcome back. I'm Colonel Retired Chris Wyatt, United States Army. This is the program where you'll hear unbiased, well, we all have bias, but objective, cogent, lucid, clear analysis of events around the planet. Well, let's just start right now with this situation. Yesterday, the United States Supreme Court handed the Biden regime a triumph in rejecting a challenge by several states' attorneys general that sought to uphold the First Amendment of the United States Constitution by preventing the federal government from contacting social media platforms to coerce, cajole, or collude with them to censor what the government claims is misinformation. Now, lost in this decision is the obvious question. What is misinformation, and who gets to determine what misinformation is? Now, why does a cabal of dishonest politicians and unelected bureaucrats have the power to override our natural rights? That's a question I am asking, and I suspect many of you as well. Incredulously, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the states and users who had challenged those interactions between the federal government and tech companies had not suffered the sort of direct injury that gave them standing to sue. So they don't have standing? Seriously? The shocking 6-3 decision should once and for all settle the ludicrous claim that this SCOTUS is a conservative court. We hear this in the captured legacy media all the time about how the conservative court, the legacy of Donald Trump. This is nonsense. This court makes idiotic decisions that have nothing to do with conservatism. Here we have yet another example of an incoherent decision that makes no sense whatsoever. Additionally, this result will allow federal criminals in the bureaucracy and politically appointed members of the corrupt Biden regime, or for that matter, any executive regime in the future, to blatantly violate the Constitution, censoring Americans through proxies. This leaves open questions as to what limits the First Amendment imposes on the government's power to influence technology companies, a question most reasonable and prudent Americans have already decided should not even be in debate. Now, I don't need the Supreme Court to tell me that the federal government is violating the Constitution, folks. And I give you, once again, the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Let's just read it verbatim so there's no confusion whatsoever by any party here. And I give you the amendments to the Constitution. The First Amendment. Congress shall make no law representing an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, hence no state religion like the Anglican Church, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Well, there you go. Shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, which means the federal government has no right to censor speech or determine what misinformation is. And the fact that this cowardly Supreme Court is allowing this is shocking beyond belief. Now, the court's asinine claim that state attorneys generals lack standing to bring the case or cannot prove harm is itself a farce. How is it that this court allows the same attorneys general to take all sorts of cases to SCOTUS on the premise that they are defending public safety, commerce, or a host of other issues when the states themselves are not victims in those cases? Yet when the federal government blatantly violates the First Amendment, suddenly the states' attorneys general have no standing in protecting their citizens. Poppycock. Among the justices who have betrayed their oath to uphold the Constitution is a supposedly conservative Amy Coney Barrett, who wrote the following drivel for the incompetent majority. And I quote, "The plaintiffs, without any concrete link between their injuries and the defendant's conduct, ask us to conduct a review of the years-long communications between dozens of federal officials across different agencies with different social media platforms about different topics. This court's standing doctrine prevents us from exercising such general legal oversight of the other branches of government." In openly claiming that SCOTUS has no role in overseeing the actions of the executive branch, the court has once again played the role of coward and abrogated its constitutional role in our representative democracy. The purpose of the court is to limit overreach by the legislature and the executive branch in determining if their actions violate law or the Constitution. What planet is Amy Coney Barrett descending from? Planet Reebok? In the minority dissenting opinion, Justice Samuel Alito wrote the following, and I quote, "For months, high-ranking government officials placed unrelenting pressure on Facebook to suppress Americans' free speech. Because the court unjustifiably refused to address this serious threat to the First Amendment, I respectfully dissent." And well done on his part. Now, Alito was joined in dissent by the only other competent members of the court, Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch. The fascist propaganda administration of Joe Biden was quick to hail their win in suppressing liberty, with the White House press secretary and America's favorite Haitian lesbian, Karine Jean-Pierre, stating the following: "The Supreme Court's decision is the right one, and it helps ensure the Biden administration can continue our important work with technology companies to protect the safety and security of the American people." Now, this quote from the misinformation czar herself, who gave us the Pinocchio-inspired "inflation has declined thanks to Joe Biden" misinformation just a few days ago. Folks, much like the Nazis, the Soviets, Mao, Kim Jong-il, Pol Pot, and other totalitarians, the Biden regime embraces and rejoices at free rein to silence its critics who deign to publicly speak out against them or their purported crimes and transgressions. Governments that are illegitimate fear free speech. Now, the plaintiffs had examples of Americans harmed by the regime's violation of the First Amendment, but this fell on deaf ears with this captured court. For instance, the plaintiffs clearly demonstrated how Jill Hines, a healthcare activist who helped direct Health Freedom Louisiana, was harmed. And an even more bizarre, see-no-evil approach, the majority ignored its own decision just a month ago, in May, when the court unanimously ruled in favor of the National Rifle Association in a case that raised similar issues. In that case, the NRA versus VULO, the justices of the Supreme Court said the group could pursue a First Amendment claim against the New York State official who had encouraged companies to stop doing business with it. Apparently, the callow majority justices of SCOTUS are perfectly happy declaring the actions of state officials unconstitutional, but fear to tread, stating the same about their supposedly co-equal branch at federal level. Folks, this is distressing to say the very least. The Supreme Court has failed in its basic task to uphold the Constitution. There is no ambiguity in the First Amendment whatsoever. The federal government has no right to consult with tech companies, to consult with the media, to censor your speech. If they don't like your speech, too bad. You are a free Homo sapien. You have natural rights, God-given rights, which our founders recognized were God-given and put restraints on an out-of-control government. We see all too often how governments run amok. Look at what Australia did during the lockdown, locking up citizens, beating people in the streets for exercising their protected right to demonstrate. Look what the United Kingdom did, banning demonstrations. The country that gave us the Magna Carta, first limiting the rights of the monarch. Wow. Look at the behavior of the criminal cabal that sits in Ottawa under Jussi Trudeau, using terrorist legislation to silence their opponents in the trucking industry. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, governments given too much power oppress people and turn them into serfs. As Francis Hayek once gave the title of his book, The Road to Serfdom. And we're well on the way there. It is time for the people to stand up peacefully and be heard. Speak out against this miscarriage of justice. The federal government, the bureaucracy under Trump, the White House under Biden have censored Americans. They have either cajoled, coerced, or colluded with tech firms like Twitter and Facebook and others to silence your opinion. If you want to say something doesn't work, that's your opinion. People don't have to listen to you. No one is forced to sit and listen and follow your directions. And we're not sitting forced to listen to the propaganda coming from the granddaughter of Joseph Goebbels herself. That would be Karine Jean-Pierre, and of course, Circleback Saki, who's no longer there, but now the mouthpiece on another useless broadcasting network. Unbelievable. This is a terrible decision. Now, it's not the end of the road, folks. The court said that these states' attorneys general lacked standing. Well, that's nonsense. But I have standing. I have been harmed. You have been harmed. The Supreme Court has failed to protect Americans, and it has failed in its prima facie purpose to uphold the Constitution of the United States. This, make no mistakes, folks, this is not a conservative court. This is a bizarre court that reaches outrageously ludicrous decisions on a number of issues. And shame on them. Shame on them. States attorneys general, when they want to prosecute someone, have standing with the Supreme Court because they're defending the public. But when they want to actually defend the public, they don't have standing. What sec, as the South Africans would say. Nonsense. Hey, folks, be sure to leave a comment behind. Again, I'm not a constitutional attorney like Barry Obama, so my interpretation may not be 100% accurate in your view. But then that's your view, and this is my view. So hopefully we agree that the government has overreached and the court has failed in its prima facie responsibility. Thanks a lot, folks. God bless. And from Central Pennsylvania, this is Chris. Be safe out there.